computer. Okay, we'll just have hand gestures, of course. And let me just add to your introduction when you introduce your topic, right? I think we already talked about that last time. When you are introducing your topic, you have to mention why the topic is important, or will it be very useful to your audience, your topic. And your presentation is about time management. Okay. Because on that, for that, we have to, there's no problem with your self introduction. We're all good on that. I'm just more concerned on the introduction of the topic because I think it's important. So you can ask, can you think of, we have attention grabbing techniques. First one, you can also ask, so attention grabbing technique or techniques, right? First, you can have asking questions.
Mm. For the introduction of presentation, it's this the purpose of presentation as well? Like
Yes,
the
introduction of your topic. Because you have self introduction, and then next to
mm,
that would be, so first is the self introduction, and then
mm,
next it would be the introduction of your topic. But of course, instead of saying like my presentation is about blah blah blah, that would be too boring, right? So we
mm,
want to grab the attention of the audience to your presentation. So we can ask, for example, the question, your title is time hack or time management hack, right? So you can possibly ask question, who example this, but these are just examples. You can come up with your own, of course. So you can say who among you you're talking to the audience, or you can ask them to do something. Raise your hand if you're having a problem with your time management. So that's a attention grabbing. Okay. Also, you're showing a gesture. So you copy, you do what you said. Raise your hand if you are having a problem with time management, something like that. So you can have that as an example. Asking question, let me go back to asking question. Asking question, then you can ask who among you are having a problem with time management. And then you can say, you can raise your hand just to say yes, right? Don't be shy, you can raise your hand. Something like that. Okay. And then you could say, why is time management important? Why is time management important? So if you answer this question, you are introducing the purpose. Am I right?
mm, mm,
By answering this question, you can introduce the purpose or significance, or the importance, significance of your presentation. So this is something you need to add. Instead of telling them, my presentation today is about time management hack, you can be more creative by, you can ask a question, ask them to do something, like raise your hand. So you would recognize time management. So for example, why is time management important? Then you could come up with your own answer. If no one answers, for example, why is time management important? And then there's silence, right? So that question, we will answer that question in my presentation today. So that's it, right? We will answer that question in our today's presentation because I know you also want to know why time management is important. Okay, first, let's define time management. So you can go on with that, right? Instead of, they get the point, it's more interesting, right? Also, of course, I mentioned to you about your intonation.
mm,
Intonation and stress. Please practice on this one because there are times that we tend to be monotonous, right? So, for example, so let me go back to my attention grabbing statements, right? Like, who among you has a problem or is having a problem with time management? Go ahead, raise your hand. Okay. So you just imagine that you're talking to them. Let's say no one raised the hand and you say, okay, so I think everyone's perfect. We're right. So everyone looks good. So All right. Why is time management important? Okay. So this question is something we're going to answer in my presentation. Are you ready to discover this with me? Let me remind you, you are in for a treat today because I'm giving you hacks for free. Do you like something for free? So you see the intonation varied, right? So I would go excited and then putting stress on important words, something like that. Do you get the point, Teacher Amy? That was only the introduction. So you could set the mood of your presentation. All right. So that's the first thing. Now, today, I'm going to teach you different types of hand gestures. Okay. So just very simple. All right. Because in the presentation, because we have limited view, right? It's just a small frame. So you cannot move a lot like this, right? So you could work on your hand gestures, intonations, and the facial expressions. Okay. So maybe I'll just give you the 6 types. Okay. The first one, okay, we call it listing. So that's why I advise you to have numbers. So you can have 4. So for example, today, so you can say today, you can point today like this. Today, I'm going to give you 4 for time management. Or today, I'm going to give you 4 time management hacks. Let's start with the first one. Here, for example, process of time, how much time is spent on certain activities. For example, here, let me share the screen. So let's assume, okay, you're doing your presentation here, right? Okay. So when you're defining this, for example, can you see my computer screen?
Mhm. Yeah.
So for example, what is time management? So time management is the process of directing how much time spent on certain activities. Question, what kind of activities do you do every day? I think a lot, right? So first we have to prepare ourselves for the work in the morning. Second, we have to go to the office. Third, we have to complete the task in the office, right? Fourth, if you're a mom, you have to pick up your kids. And then fifth, you have to take care of your family. So you can do that if you want to give examples, Teacher Amy. All right. Just instead of doing this and that, you just say, first, when you wake up in the morning, that's already a task. Second, you have to prepare for your work. If you have kids, you also have to prepare for your kids' school. Third, you have to report to your boss, do some office tasks. There are multiple. Okay, now you see. Do you get the point on listing?
Okay.
All right. So that's the first one. You got the listing. All right. So you can say numbers first, second, and third, or when you say we have 4, so now the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. All right. But make sure you are coordinated with what you're talking with the numbers. Okay. All right. Does it
Okay.
make sense? All right.
Mm.
So also, we can also have, when you're moving, of course, you move your hands. And then since this is a video, right, you can just do this first, and then second, right, and then third, and then fourth. So that won't cover your entire face. And still they can see your numbers. Or if you're confident, if you're comfortable with this, you can have this first one, second one, third one, right? So just like the list. Okay. And then you could insert some examples. Like, for example, what are the activities you do every day? My case first, I have to wake up early because I have to prepare my husband's breakfast. And I have to be up by exactly 6 a.m. By 8 a.m., I have to turn on my computer so I could work from home. At 9 o'clock, I have to do this. So something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next useful gesture that we can do is to show leveling. So that's number 2, leveling. Leveling is like first, also, like you say, this is the most important. Okay. This is the second one. All right. I'm sorry. All right. So this is the second one, the third one. So that's a leveling. Or you could say more people agree that time management is important. and then less people. Okay. So you level them. This is higher level. This is the lower level. Do you get the point? You can do that. So for example, let's go back to your presentation here. Sorry. So how much time do workers spend on productive work each day? So you have a percentage, right? So you can say 64% is of the office workers believe they're spending non-productive hours at work, while the 36%, so you can do that. So you can do this 64% and then the 36%. Okay? Do you get the point? That is what you call leveling. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And we can apply it to the presentation, right? What do you think? We can do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can have that leveling point, right? To show the importance. Okay. Or you can mention in your presentation the leveling technique here, powerful tips. Okay. Okay. When you say, let me go back to screen sharing. All right. So you can also use the leveling here. Okay. So just imagine, because you don't have a display behind you, right? But imagine, for example, set SMART goals. Okay. Let's define each letter, the SMART, for the SMART goal. Okay. S, specific. So you can do this. Just imagine that there's something. You can say S first is specific, next measurable, M, A is attainable, R is realistic, and then T is time bound. So specific, measurable, something like that. So that is what you call also leveling. Okay. So instead of just saying first specific, second, so instead you say first S specific, M measurable, A attainable or achievable, like that, right? Let me write achievable. Yeah, something like that. And then R realistic. Okay. So we can show that in your presentation. Sorry, in your presentation. Okay. Do you have a question about leveling?
None so far.
Okay. All right. So that is leveling. You can also use that in different examples. Let's say something is more important. For example, you have to set your priority. What is your priority one? And what is your second priority? Or for example, in your work, job interview is the top on the list of your tasks. So first, I have job interview. That's the most important. And the least important here is attending meetings. Okay. So job interview, 90%. Attending meetings is just 10% of my daily activities. So something like that. Okay. So that is leveling. So you give something is big and then something small. Okay.
Mm.
All right. Next one. This is, I think, pointing. When we do pointing, because it's not really appropriate because you point to someone. That's so rude, right? But yeah, if we have a presentation down here, we can point. So that's the pointing. But in our case, I think in your presentation, you can just point like this. Do you experience the same thing? So we can just do this instead of this, right? Or you can point to yourself. Japanese people would do this, right? So you can point. I personally, I don't think it's necessary. Okay. I so you can point to yourself, right? So I think that's safe. But you can use also pointing gestures. Or you can do this sometimes, right? I think this is a good advice. I think this is very important. So still you can use this pointing. All right? Does that make sense so far?
Mm. Yeah.
You get a question? All right.
Yes.
But usually, if you are doing an actual presentation, let's say a face to face presentation, pointing will be effective so you can get the attention of your audience. For example, you feel like someone is bored. For example, you in the red dress. I think you have a very good blah 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 like that. That person will be drawn back to your presentation. So that's another way of attention grabbing for the presentation. Okay? Another thing, separating ideas like this and this. You get that? So number
Mm.
4 is separate hand separation, or I don't know what it's called. I forgot. but you can also point something like this and that. Let's just call it this and that. For example, let me check your presentation again. Let me set that. Okay. Okay, here. So you got here. Okay. So for example, you're going to say second tip is, or second hack. Second hack is there. Prioritize your goals. Prioritize your goals. You have to identify which is important, this or that. The work, the office hours, or your time with your family. You have to weigh which is more important. Okay? But you don't have to choose. Both are important. But which should come first? Work or your family? You get the point of this and that, right? Break down goals into achievable tasks. Okay, is this one, can you do this in 30 minutes? How about this one? Can you do this in 1 hour? So which one do you want to do first? The small task or the big task? So you do that for your hand gestures. Does that make sense? So you don't have to do this all the time. And then you could also improve your intonation because you could say, which is easier to complete? A smaller task or the bigger task? Which do you do first? The easy task or the more difficult task? So you also pause and then put stress on the word. So that's how it's going to work, the hand gestures. So we can apply that to your presentation. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and do you have any questions so far? I think that's the fourth already.
Mm.
No questions so far?
Actually I understood everything in the gestures, so I hope
Mm-hmm.
that I be able to apply this in my presentation. But of course, yeah, this is really helpful. And I just want to ask Miss Divine about the purpose of presentation, because the script that you gave me, there are three questions that you already,
Mm-hmm.
put here. So it says here, before we talk about today's topic, let me ask you three questions. How many hours do you usually work? Do you work extra hours outside the regular schedule? What would you do with an extra hour in your day? So, are these questions after my introduction, my self introduction? And
Yes,
then,
you can do
yeah,
that. Or
yeah, and
you can change. I feel like asking the audience to do something, which one do you find more effective? Because for me, if you ask for example, who among you, you could do that, right? What are the three questions we mentioned last time? Sorry, forgot. In the introduction, hold on, let me check the script we had last time. How many hours do you usually work? Okay, do you work extra hours?
mm,
Okay, how about we do this? You change it into something that prompting actions. Like, for example, who among you work or yeah, who among you worked more than 8 hours in the office? Please raise your hand. I think that would be better. What do you say? It
it's
it's
okay.
better, right? Because they would only raise their hand. And then when someone raises the hand, let's say I raise the hand. Okay, how many hours do you work every day? Can you tell us, please? Like that. You think that's more of engaging to the audience, right?
Mm,
Is that okay?
okay.
All right. So you revise that one. I'm sorry because ideas just
It's
so many ideas would pop out every time
mm,
I talk about the same topic. But anything that would be comfortable for you. That's why you need to rehearse.
yeah, and then, oh yeah, the one that you added
Mm,
about
mm.
the question. Okay, the presentation, my presentation purpose of my presentation. So after these questions, these three questions in the beginning, so I can still ask the questions that you said a while ago about, about the having problem. Who among you are having a problem with time management? So
You can
it's
also add
different.
that.
Yeah.
But I think having four questions at the beginning is already too much.
Mm.
So please, you just delete the two questions. You can just pick the two best questions for you.
In this case, after my self introduction and the purpose of the presentation,
Yes,
maybe
that's
I can
right.
just ask one question, and then after that, because you put here also
The
about my
purpose. Mm-hmm.
my experience at work, being an employee for 12 years has been quite challenging. So there's this,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is a storytelling
Mhm.
technique. That's right.
Yeah, and then after, that's the time that I asked the purpose of my presentation. So why
Exactly.
time
Then,
important? Why is that?
or why is time management important? Or you
Uh,
can also, if you don't want to, is time
mm,
management important? Why?
or what about this, the one you said, who among you are having a problem with time management?
You can also do that. You just pick which is easier for you to remember, easier for you to deliver. It's up to you. Okay. My role here is just to give you ideas. And if there are too many ideas, please try to choose the best for you. All right. These are the hand gestures we're hoping to incorporate or
Mm,
to see in your presentation. Is that okay?
okay. Yeah.
Because that we need those. Okay. And
Okay.
then, like I mentioned earlier, this is the next one for gesture is the prompting gestures. For example, you said raise your hand if you agree. All right. Or you can
Mm,
say thumbs up if you think this is a good hack. You do that. Okay. So you also do that. You show what you want the audience to do with you. Okay. Or you could say, for example, you mentioned something flattering and you say, oh, let's give her a round of applause. And then you do that too, usually. So that is what we call the prompting gestures. And what else? Gestures. There's another one. Maybe you could also add this. This is support, or I think it could call that supporting gestures. So you could have supporting gestures. Of course, you can nod to show your support. Okay. Supporting gestures. When you agree to the idea, of course, you do that. Yes, please go on. So you're showing your audience how you feel about something. You can move your head. So you see, you incorporated your action. That's called like a supporting gestures. Or you could say, oh, usually, oh, I don't care about the boss or something. So, like that. Okay. All right. Or like the last one you said, don't sweat the small stuff, right? If something you cannot do, shrug your shoulders and just ignore it. So that's it. That's supporting gestures, right? What you say, you put it into actions like that. And these are also effective since we are doing Zoom. So your audience would see how lively you are as a speaker. All right. So it's okay to move, but not moving like this. You can move your shoulders if you have an idea, or let's say you're doubtful. I'm not sure about that. So you can do that. Okay. First, we can put them in our presentations, right?
yeah. Mm,
Okay. So you'll prepare for tomorrow. I'll find your availability again